Hating a group or an individual, particularly one that bases its identity upon reversals, such as the modern nihilistic method does, is no less a sign of dependence as loving a group or an individual. The power of the modern infection of Western man is that it bases its argument and draws its greatest power and inspiration from emotions, not from reason. Love is how it assimilates, and hate is how it binds itself into a stable unity. In both cases, an overpowering anxiety is the driving force. But this is true of all organic structures, including ones with an abstracted framework such as an ideology and a shared principle. In the case of the Western variant of this cult of victimhood, to hate them is to buy into their mythologies, and is no less an emotional reaction driven by fear. True power, independence, is characterized by indifference. For example, one might be weary of a lion, but one would not hate it for being exactly what it is and could ever be. One analyzes the species, determines its patterns of behavior and its tactics within the niche it is attempting to carve out for itself. And then one deduces the implications upon oneself, drawing from this a response, a reaction to a lion's presence as a phenomenon, one amongst many, with its own possibilities. The curiosity of listening to anti-Semites using the very tactics those they despise have used for centuries points to the success of the victim model. Judaism has mastered the strategy of victimhood and has made its toils and tears a pivotal part of its identity. There are not only the chosen ones, after all, other peoples rejected God, but the ones chosen to suffer the most by and for Him. Their pleasure, if you can call it that, is found in their suffering as a form of masochism projected forward, utopianism, paradise, as a hoped for coming ecstasy. The more improbable the hope is, all the more powerful the faith must be, proving itself through its blind commitment. The pleasure is displaced forth as some coming event that justifies all the pains that must be endured today, in the here and now. The present, in this way, is lost as a state of preparation, a testing phase, purgatory necessary to usher in the coming age of salvation. Reversely, in the noble character, the other, whether foe or friend, is nothing more than the sum of its past, and so it can never be other than what it is. One does not hate a storm, nor does one despise the flu. One endures it, and one comes up with tactics to avoid becoming dominated and infected by it. But more than this, one pays homage to it and accepts its necessity because it forces one to grow and then remain strong and vigilant. And more than this, it defines self as that which is other than this confronting otherness. The victim psychology permeates Judeo-Christian culture, even amongst those that purport to be contrary to them and their ideals. The accusation that the marketing mogul or the banker is to blame for someone becoming broke smells of the same displacement of responsibility from the self upon the other that is common within all Slavish attitudes. It accuses the other of being evil or unjust simply for being who and what it is and always has been, never once taking on the burden of blame and having failed to perceive and to understand this otherness, either exaggerating or underestimating its presence, its effect. This in turn becomes a constant accusatory attitude where the only relief from it is imagined as the destruction of this seductive, irresistible entity which the mind feels helpless to resist and to confront on its own. The world is to be destroyed because it does not meet with our expectations and is not benevolent towards our desires. Our incapacity to adapt to the world makes us wish it away. The mind's feeble willfulness and sense of self, as well as its sense of other, are absolved of fault, and it is the otherness, this world of threats, which is to be condemned and then corrected in accordance with our preferences, even if this might lead to a stagnation. I mean, after all, what is paradise but a state of stagnation and boredom? Sheltering is preferred to the challenge, or remaining intact within a fluid reality. That is, we prefer to be protected than to exist within a world that threatens our unity, our life, and forces us to grow and to improve ourselves. But it's unfortunate, this otherness, which we might call the world, reality, does not care, does not buckle, nor does it easily conform to our moralistic assaults upon it, unless it too is infected with the same moral standards of victimhood. To put it simply, the tactic of victimhood only works when the other also shares in it, that is, shares in the principles and the morals that underlie the victim psychology. As this is only possible with animate life, that is, life that becomes and develops consciousness, such as with man, the effect of playing this, using this tactic, becomes popular within systems where it's considered self-evident, and we see the popularity of the victimhood role tactic in our everyday lives. If you open the TV, everybody tries to portray themselves as being the more wronged, the bigger victim, the one who should be pitied the most. And since pity is the after effect of this tactic, we both hate and love the one that offers it to us. We beg for pity, and then we despise the other for giving it to us. I would suspect that a bum, when upon receiving money from a passerby, is both thankful and resentful towards that person. In this tactic of absolving oneself of responsibility and blaming the world, rather than of one's incapacity to deal with the world, and the attitude of taking responsibility for one's existence, taking responsibility for every action one undertakes and the consequences of them, is the defining difference between the feminine or the masculine attitude. And we see in today's world that the feminine is increasingly becoming the norm. In the case of the masculine, this do or die attitude, this living in accordance to one's nature, living and dying in accordance to one's nature, is what makes the masculine creative and admirable and noble. That is, the male attempts to impose itself upon the world, and if it fails, it accepts this decree as being part of the intent. In this confrontation, we can see why the masculine either reaches the height of glory or tumbles to the depths of despair. And it also explains why the feminine always hovers around the mediocre, the average, never quite reaching the depths of male decrepitude, but neither reaching the heights of masculine glory and nobility, when and if it comes about.